Welcome everybody to Sharing Soulful Stories. Today I am here with Denise Silk. Welcome, Denise.
Thanks, Jo. It's great to be here.
And now I'm just going to tell everyone a little bit more about you, Denise. So Denise is the founder of Bravely Speaking. She's an insightful global speechwriter, teacher and coach, as well as a published poet and songwriter. Denise is an expert in human behaviour, and her services are speechwriting, communications coaching and workshops. Focus is on helping people be understood and express from their hearts to enable deeper, more profound and effective connections, effective connections, getting to the heart of who they are and sharing with their audiences. Welcome, Denise. That sounds like something I would benefit from myself. So thank you so much for being here. I've been starting these interviews off, we're getting into spirituality and opening it up to free the definition a little bit. So I would love to start off with, what does spirituality mean to you?
Yeah, no, that's such a good question. It's such a big question too at the same time. I guess for me, when I think of spirituality, what I've come around to see is for me, it's about connection. So it's firstly the connection within the self, and really hearing my own and for other people hearing their own inner wisdom, and then taking that connection beyond into that connection outside, into the earth, into the universe, and perhaps that tapping into that higher wisdom that's out there for all of us. So it's, for me, spirituality is all about the connection, and the role that we play. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I like all of the words that you chose to include in that definition. So fantastic to hear that some people think along the same lines as myself when it comes to spirituality. My next question for you is, has spirituality always been part of your life, or has there been some sort of trigger event which was the point at which you began to explore this avenue?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both. I think from my youth, I always felt I knew things, or there was a sense of something bigger or a knowing, but I didn't really know anything about it. I wasn't in an environment where I could ask questions or even feel like I could ask a question. So it wasn't until, I would say maybe like 10 years ago that I did have a profound kind of trigger event. And I guess I'd call it like a near-death experience is what kind of triggered a lot of things for me. So I used to love cycling. I still love cycling, but I was very heavily into doing long distance cycling back then. So I was on like a 400k ride with a group. Wow. In Malaysia, and a car lost control. And I remember trying to decide, it was kind of jumping from side to side, and I kind of was, okay, how do I get out of harm's way, but ended up putting myself in harm's way in the process of that. I can break down every decision I went through, but at some point I decided I needed to get off the bike. That was the only way out of this. I had to get myself off the bike, and that's what happened. I ended up sitting on the road and then pulling my bike out later from underneath the car. And just sitting there and like trying to figure out what happened. But realizing at that time I was trying to, away from cycling, I was wanting to go down the path of songwriting, but not really believing myself. I'd signed up, done a couple of classes, and I was putting on hold one class because I just thought it was too hard. I didn't understand it. How could I do it? And I can still remember on that bike ride, it gives me shivers because I remember thinking I didn't know what I wanted to do. At some point I just went, oh, well, I'll just sign up for another long ride. And as I made those decisions, it basically put this sequence of events in place to go, you need to wake up. And I just remember sitting on my bed that night realizing that this was a wake-up call, that I was not being focused. It was just trying to hide in the cycling away from, you know, taking charge of my life. And it basically triggered me then to go into meditation. That was because although I didn't have a scratch, I didn't have a bruise, nothing, I still had pain. I had pain in my knee, had pain in my leg, and I just couldn't figure it out, and nor could physios and the like. So that is what took me down the path of meditation. And in that process, I remember just getting to that point, as you probably hear from other people, and you reach that breaking point where I was on the bed crying, going, I just want to be out cycling with my friends today. And I just went deeper and deeper. I just went, fine, I've got nothing else to do. I'm just going to meditate. And it just went into this really, really deep meditation. I don't think I've ever been able to repeat it, but I fell asleep. And then as I woke up, I remember going, just meditate. And as I did, I just remember all the pain disappearing, every ounce of pain just leaving my body. And it came back within a few days. It wasn't like I was solved, but it just showed me the power of the mind. It showed me that I could go beyond those thoughts and that I could heal within the body. And it just blew my mind. And I think coupled with the knowing that I just had that sense that accident was making me do this course. So I signed up for that. And so it just got the ball rolling. And yeah, it just, my mind was blown. It's those things that you can't unsee or unfeel that happen. And that just put me on this path and this journey to explore more, I suppose. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. And how amazing to think how that could have ended up, and yet it still had such an interesting, not interesting might not be the right word, but an impact on you that caused you to investigate this, even though you were thankfully largely unscathed from what could have been really scary. I wonder though, can you now share a bit more about the story and how it's unfolded since that time 10 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll use the songwriting because it kind of blends into where I went with speech writing, but because that seemed to be the trigger. That was the thing I was really wanting to do. But I was in a corporate role. I was an accountant. I was a finance leader for a multinational. I traveled the world. I was living in Singapore and China, and life was good. But I think I reached that point where that accident really started me down that path of meditation. Then I met a particular group of people that I got involved in a workshop where I could I think it was something around like unpacking your life and repacking. And it just kind of went, hang on, I get to choose this, and it was like, oh my God, I actually can choose that. Yeah, this isn't fulfilling anymore. It was up to a certain point, but then I realized that I was just holding on. And I think I did for a long period. I did some songwriting classes while I was still working, but yet I guess there was a point where I knew I wanted to quit, but it took me 4 years to do it. That journey of just, and then watching my body change, and I was getting sicker and sicker and not listening to the signs. Until I just decided one day that it was enough. I knew that I would have to make a decision, that the next promotion was going to be there, and I would have to make that decision. So, and I still remember that decision it is probably the one thing I can hang on to that was the most certain in my life. The moment I made that decision, I was at home and I just went, oh, what's the one thing I want to do? And it was, I want to quit. I just want to walk away. And it was like every cell in my body changed. They talk about you can have a physiological change, and I did. I mean, even the next day when I went in the office, I had a team there in China, and a few of them walked in and they're like, what have you done? You look different.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, if only you knew in a few months I'm going to quit. But it was on my body. It was on my face. Like, it changed so profoundly. And then I guess for me, the biggest journey has been that 4 years since I quit. And so for me, it was the number one thing I told myself when I left, because I didn't know 100% what I wanted to do, but I just knew that this was the next step. This was what I was stepping into. And I just said my number one goal was to hear my voice. I felt like I'd been 19 years in one company, and that's a long time.
Yeah.
You know, as if I didn't pick up culture from that or the people I was around. So I wanted to kind of almost de-layer myself of things that I'd picked up, or expectations, or the taking on the shoulds and things that weren't really me at the core. And I just needed to let a lot of that go to actually start to hear my voice again, to that wisdom that I knew I did have. Like, I knew I always seemed to know what I wanted to do or where to go, but somewhere in there it got fuzzy. I lost it. And so that first part of walking away from corporate was I just allowed myself to go and experiment in writing. So I didn't want to go in with, oh, you'll end up being this or this. I went and did like creative writing, lyric writing, poetry, and just multiple courses, even improv classes, which were completely off center and nothing that I would ever really do or ever do again. But it just got me out of my head. And then I eventually found speechwriting, because both songwriting and speechwriting to me are like, they're at my heart. They just are the two things I can go back to. And I can just, again, hang on to that truth, that feeling that I knew the moment I decided I wanted to try speechwriting, and I found a teacher. It was like a big aha moment. And I was just so excited and so happy to be going to the class and learning that it just inspired something extraordinary. But then what I didn't count on, and which was the next part of my journey, was the trust. Not really, like, I'd found the voice. I knew in my heart it was songwriting and speechwriting. But then I found that what is going on in my headspace, because I'm not trusting this voice. I'm not trusting, even though I was kind of walking in that path, I wasn't jumping in. And so that took me down the path of just being intrigued with human behavior and why we're doing this. What's in our heads? What are these layers? I found I had a lot of old behaviors that I had that was showing up, and I had to work through and clear them and make different choices to kind of rewire the brain. And as I walked down that path, and I just got stronger and stronger, and I started to see that as I did step down those paths, that for believing those statements that people say, like, when you step there, the universe supports you. And I actually found that to be true. Like, as much as I believed, I guess there was some skepticism until it actually started happening for me. And then my belief just got stronger and stronger, to just keep going in that direction. Yeah. So it's been an incredible journey, but it has been a journey.
Amazing. And I love that, because it's interesting that you say you sort of always knew what was the right decision, but it got a bit fuzzy. And I wonder whether that to some extent happens because we're not following it, or we're not doing it. We sort of lose that. And yet you then came back to this idea of as you take the steps, the universe it feels like it's supporting you. And, you know, it's a bit of a give and take. You know, you have to actually do something, and then something else opens up. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And the fact that it is a journey, and we just start. You know, one way to begin is to explore, you know, like you said, experiment, have a bit of fun with what the possibilities might look like for you. I wonder, can you share with me how you weave spirituality through your everyday. You've found this place to be, where you're learning to you're hearing the voice, you're learning to trust the voice. But what does it actually look like in your life?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because we know spirituality is so expansive. For me, it shows up in I guess, probably a couple of profound ways. One, meditation, I think, because that's where it started for me. So although I can't say that I've practiced every day for 10 years, it goes in and out, but it's something I always go back to. When I need to be centered, or if I feel like I've gone off course again, I just come back. And I don't do anything extravagant. I mean, I'm a 5 or 10 minute meditator, 20 minutes at best, otherwise I fall asleep. But I do bring it back. Probably the number one for me is probably journaling. As a writer, that's my way into the release, into something deeper, into just getting stuff out of the brain, creating space. For me, it's just getting it down, getting into a journal. And I have journaled every day for 4 years. That is without a doubt. And the one thing I started to learn last year, because I did get a bit frazzled and find I was circling around again, was the physical. So because I am a head person, I do get in my mind and an overthinker. Just bringing in a small physical practice, even as much as walking along the beach or just getting barefoot on ground. A small yoga practice is what I'm trying to establish for myself. I just find when I do have that physical practice, it does free up that space for those words to come through for me. So for me, that's kind of my counterbalance. I feel at best and at optimum when I have a little bit of all of them in my day. But if I'm out of balance, it's usually around the physical or I need to be writing. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that, actually, because and I found that too, because I've had more of a physical more embodiment. It actually feels like, as you say, it allows the words to come through and out. It's almost like we're drawing it in, and then by moving it allows it to shift and move through. It's really interesting that you say that, and I kind of love there's the meditation and the movement and the journaling, and it feels almost a bit like mind, body, spirit, all like weaving into it all as part of it. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, because there was a really like tangible, practical things that I know people will be like, okay, I could have a go at that. That might suit me. I'll have a play with it. And I just wondered too, for people that might be having those moments like you did when you're like, I need to quit my job, or I'm really getting this sense that there's something here for me, or something else, or something bigger, or something different, and are ready to maybe dip their toe in. What advice might you have for them?
Yeah, I think, listen to your voice. At the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter what we do, what workshop we go to, what modality we go down. At the end of the day, every single one is drawing us back. At least my philosophy is really to hear our voices, to hear that wisdom. So don't judge yourself. Like, don't, if it starts with, a friend recommending somebody and you go down that path, but then just listen to what comes up next for you. If you're drawn to a particular book or a particular person, don't compare yourself to anybody. It's your journey. And so for me, it just, I read hundreds of books. I went to different workshops. I tried lots of different things. And I think that's part of it. I think you've just listen to what comes up, and if the next thing shows up in your feed and it resonates, or you meet somebody, then just listen to how that feels. Like, for me, it comes back to the feeling. So if the feeling's not there, just let it go. It's okay too. Like, you don't have to take everything, and you can't possibly do everything. But I also think to give yourself time to experiment. And I think the other thing that worked a lot for me was making sure I was filling my time with things I loved, and not just doing the things I loved because it might become a career or a job. It was just putting the things that light up my life around me. So whether it's a bunch of flowers, for me, I love flowers. So, you know, I get a bunch of flowers, or going and sitting down at the beach and journaling, like sitting outside in nature. And for me, having that space is really important. So, and for me, I love writing on really wooden desks. You know, that's just a fetish, I think. But for me, it seems to, like, more inspiration comes from wood. So find those things that you love, because that's what opens your heart. And when your heart's open, that's when you hear the messages. That's when you hear that voice just reminding you of that dream, or reminding you of that idea you had a few years ago. And I think from that, the things we love, that just reminds us of those things. And I really just would encourage somebody just to start doing that. If that might just be the easiest thing. Just start to fill your day with things that do open your heart. And then it will guide you onto that next thing, and then trust that feeling as to where to go. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And I don't feel like I can sum that up any better than that. What a fantastic first step. Just follow what you love, to allow your heart to open, to hear your voice. Boom, there you go. There's the path that will work for everybody in whatever way is their thing that makes them light up and their heart open, and them feel great in their days. Thank you so much. What beautiful advice. If people are interested in more about what you do, speechwriting, songwriting, those types of coaching that you do to help people find their voices, where is the best, I'll put links below, but where's the best place for them to find a bit more about you?
Yeah, so I have Bravely Speaking, which is my workshop on helping people with communication and finding their voice. I will eventually, I'm getting my own kind of personal Denise Silk website, and that's where I'll do a lot more workshops, because I love teaching. So it's really just where I'll be able to share more of my journey, because I feel like this last 4 years has been that journey, and just being able to put those words and the stories, and it might help people out there further along their path, and to find their voice and look at their behaviours and release a lot of what's in there. So, and to just ask questions. You know, I'm here, I'm happy to answer questions if anyone's on a similar journey, or if it resonates, then yeah, just reach out. I'm in Sydney, so yeah, I'm sure we can call or connect somehow on, I've got email addresses on both of those. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for joining me today and sharing what spirituality means to you. I will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Jo.
No worries.